The Sign of Four, Book 2 in the Sherlock Holmes series by Arthur Conan Doyle. It was odd that this book began with Holmes taking cocaine and the book ends with him taking more of it. Although this certainly dates the book because cocaine was a prescribed medication at the time, it's certainly shocking to modern readers to see the protagonist casually taking cocaine and morphine. But again, I view this more simply as a product of the times, literally. Who knows how future generations will view us for things we do without a second thought. But yeah, that was definitely weird. Sherlock Holmes just taking a bunch of cocaine in the book. The murder investigation in this, the second book, I felt it lacked the intrigue of the murder in the previous book, the first book. Seriously, the investigation in this book does not require an ounce of deduction or genius level detective work. Basically, they find a guy dead in the attic and the door is locked, so Sherlock says, oh, he must have come in through the roof or the window. Like, really? You think? Then he finds footprints on the windowsill, but I think there's only one foot, so they're looking for a one-legged man. And then there's an accomplice who is described as being incredibly short, like 4'5" or something. And I think he's a very dark of skin Oriental guy. And then they find out they need to search for a boat. I think it's black with a white stripe through it. This does not require incredible detective work. I mean, this is so dumb. Anyone could solve this case. I didn't like in the first book that the second half of the book was all about this stuff about the backstory of the murder in Utah. And this book kind of does the same thing where it's going into the backstory of the motives behind the murder. But at least with this book, Holmes was present for that interview where the murderer gives his confession and says why he did it. So I at least like that more in this book, that Holmes was there. There was also an insta-love story thrown in where Dr. Watson, the sidekick, basically sees a beautiful woman. He talks with her for about 10 seconds, and toward the end of the book, he proposes marriage to her after being together with her for all of like 15 minutes. So there's an insta-love story, and it's just like, why is that here? There's like no build-up whatsoever for this romance that's thrown in. So that was just a complete dud of a romance to me. To sum it up, the murder in this book lacked intrigue. The detective work required absolutely zero insightful deductions. And again, it had a lengthy murder confession at the end of the book, but at least Holmes was there for it. It also had the insta-love story I didn't like, and it also had the weird bits about doing a bunch of cocaine. I'm tempted to give the book 2 stars, but I'll give it 3 for at least not having as dreadfully boring a second half as the first book. I think Doyle did improve on that aspect, but the murder, the intrigue in this book was just not there. It was not nearly as compelling as the first book. So overall, 3 stars, not as good as the first book, but at least it wasn't as dreadfully boring as the second half of the first book. It's better in some ways, but in other ways, it's not as good. So yeah, 3 stars for